Well, now, for the ultimate internet thinking they're pretty snide. The internet, you know.
Yeah.
I'm aware.
They're so freaking snide, guys. But they can never defeat the Snyder.
Oh,
Because
God.
he's always Snyder. And no matter how many times they look up at
Still
him,
going.
he's looking down.
This is just the whole podcast.
Yeah, no, they'll look up at him and say, "Save us," and Snyder
Yeah.
will be like, "No."
We're sorry. We were totally, what's the word? Threatened by how clever you are.
Oh, God. I can hear people listening going, Snyder sucks. What is she talking about?
You make me feel things. And he's up there going, I know, I'm supposed to.
That's literally my job.
I'm supposed to be a
movies."
filmmaker.
Okay, this is the longest intro we've ever had. Hi, and welcome to Behind the Hype with me, as always, Brian Dressel. With me, as always, is Chewy Darso.
Hi.
Jonathan Artisy.
Hi.
And Matt, Zombie Dog Dykes.
I need more talking dogs.
I mean, you really do, but at the same time, aren't you just the talking dog now?
If we're going to do alliteration with Son of Sun, Night of Night, can he be Zombie of Zanzibar?
I'm
mean,
fine
really-
with that.
I don't think anyone's going to know the Son of Sun, Night of Night, except for the people on this episode, because that's what I named our recording. I'm just still like, if you listened to last week's episode, you probably heard me and John have a good laugh at poor Chris Terrio and his stupid name for this movie.
Stupid.
It's so dumb.
I get
It is so bad.
I like it. It's just better for a novel than it is a movie when it comes
Yeah.
to a title.
Can't we call it something like poetic, like Son of Sun, Night of Night? And, and Warner Brothers very rightly went, no.
Yeah.
No.
Everybody at Warner Brothers became Robin on How I Met Your Mother and just went at him when he said that. And he's just sitting there like Ted going, I hate my friends.
The first thing I pictured when was, have you seen that gif of the guy with like the hairnet just sort of looking at, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That is like the image I imagine that they all did when he suggested that.
I like Chris Terrio. I can't say I love Chris Terrio, but I do like him, and that's just not his best title. But you know, whatever. So here we
I'm on
are.
Chris's side.
You got one, Chris.
But I'm a fan of alliteration, so I'm biased.
But then again, she does hate Rise of Skywalker, so she might not be your biggest fan, Chris.
Oh, he wrote that?
Yeah, I know,
Did he
right?
write that?
Well, I mean, that was clearly a hit job. So, like, I don't blame Chris Terrio because he did write
Yeah.
this and Justice League,
Did
which I do
Disney
enjoy. So,
have a gun to his head going, make it palpable for everybody and just throw in Palpatine?
Well, it's the scene in Swordfish where they have to have Hugh Jackman hack really fast or die while getting a hand job.
blowjob, sir.
Blowjob, yeah.
That was a blowjob.
Yeah, but except he did it in that movie, and he did it well.
Yeah, he pulled it off, and he finished.
Yeah, I guess we know what happened to Chris. He did not finish one of those.
I'm just picturing Mickey Mouse with a gun to his head whilst he's writing a script going, oh, you're going to finish that, huh? While Minnie Mouse
God.
is...
I was gonna say, where's Minnie? But let's not do this. Let's not go down this horrible anti-Disney route, which I go down way too often, and it's making me afraid for the rest of my career. So,
Me too.
let's move into today's episode. So if you couldn't tell, obviously we're talking Batman vs Superman, one of my favorite movies, one of my all-time favorite comic book movies. Statements that I am not ashamed to say in any way, shape, or form. Totally serious, because I think they're great. I think it's just a all-around great movie, and I'm very excited to talk about it. But before we do, I have to dial things back, like 2016, when we did our first episode on this one. We had some excellent guests on there. We had a lot of fun talking about it. It was a really, really good episode. But it was a lot of me shouting, like, can you just, no, it's just a good movie. Would you just, it works. And being told I'm wrong over and over and over and over again, which was fine. I'm not holding on to anything. No harsh judgments. I haven't been secretly plotting John's demise for the last 5 years, I promise.
Oh, shit.
There'll be a
But there
knock
was
on the
something I
door
wanted
in
to
a
bring
minute.
up. And I want to get your guys' opinion on this because I thought it was fascinating at the time, but I mostly just kind of moved past it. When I decided to do the episode on Batman vs Superman way back when in 2016. I immediately went like, I'm not going to do the theatrical version because fuck it. We're going to do the Ultimate Edition because I just watched it and holy fuck is it better. And I was so excited about it. And 3 different people, get this, 3 different people told me that's cheating. What?
Cheating.
Right? And there's a larger conversation here that's probably not for today, but who knows, about that John and I keep going back and forth to, which is the internet's reaction and fandom's reaction at large to Zack Snyder. When I said I was going to do the superior version of the film, the reaction was I was cheating so that I could be meaner to it. So that I could be nicer to it. They wanted me to be meaner to it. And I'm just like...
You know what? 2 words that just kills that argument. Dead. Blade Runner.
All I'm seeing is people looking up at Zack Snyder trying to yell, "You're not my dad," or something.
Yeah, like, it's such a weird reaction. Like, they'd be like saying that we're going to review Lord of the Rings, but we're going to do the extended editions. Well, that's cheating. You got to do the theatrical. What? What? We all know what the real editions of Lord of the Rings are, and they're 4 hours long, except for Return of the King, which is like 5 hours long. But
And it's such a weird, such a weird thing because like with the extended cuts, it's not like it dramatically it's not like it dramatically improves the movies so much to where it's like, well, how could you even stand the theatrical cuts? They're still good. I saw the theatrical cuts of the Lord of the Rings 4, 5, 6 times when they were out each easy. Like they were still good. This like the extended enhances them, and now they're the versions I watch. And like in this now post Justice League world where suddenly extended cuts can mean a whole different movie, why wouldn't you go back and try to re-examine the superior cuts or try to explore what that means? Like,
yeah.
I don't remember ever having a problem with you picking the extended cut, thinking like, well, if there's a better version, let's watch that one, right?
I mean, I remember I was on I can't remember what video it was on YouTube, but there's basically someone saying the exact same thing, saying, no, you can't say that it's a good film because of the extended cut, because you should judge it on the one that came out in the cinema. What kind of fucked up logic is that? And I actually comment, like, I rarely comment on YouTube videos because it's just like, I'm just going to comment on this and get shouted at and called a wanker or some bullshit like that. But I actually commented on that saying, okay, and I said about the Blade Runner thing, and he's like, well, that's different. It's like, no, it's not. It's the same fucking thing.
It's just made by a director that you happen to enjoy, and you don't happen to enjoy Zack Snyder. And I'm not, we did not start this month, and I'm not even attempting to accomplish this month to make people Snyder fans. Like, that's not what we're out here to do. If you don't like his movies, they don't work for you, that makes sense. He makes very bold decisions, and they might bump you the wrong way, and that is absolutely fine. It's the idea that he is a shitty filmmaker because you didn't like his movie that just blows my mind. Like, I will never fully understand it.
Yeah,
I just can't.
And that's been a lot of the, to start, like, before this month even happened, that's been a lot of the marketing. A lot of the stuff out online, press releases, articles, blogs, from all the major sources, would have you believe that he is a shitty director and that his fans are a reflection of him, shitty, just all around shitty. Everything about him is shitty. And it's from this movie on that this turn against him seems to happen, if we're going chronologically from the ones we've discussed.
Yeah.
Like, from here, probably past Watchmen, from then on, like, just everyone's turned on him.
It was very much this movie. Like, as a Snyder fan, there was a casual to pleasant eye roll when people were like, you like Zack Snyder films? Like, I love Zack Snyder films. You get kind of like, oh, you. But after this movie, it was, I would tell people I liked BVS, and they would immediately negate my opinion. Like, oh, well, then you don't know anything about movies. And there's something so weird about BVS that it was like the lightning rod that really created a large portion of the community that has gotten so negative. And I'm not saying it's the first, and it's definitely not the biggest, but it's one of them. So I kind of want to spend today diving into this movie, talking about what works, what doesn't work, because it's a fucking 3.5 hour movie, or a 3 hour movie. There are things that don't work. I'm not going to lie. But I want to talk about, like, that at large. Like, why did this piss people off so goddamn much? And my first response and my first answer, beyond the theatrical cut, because, like, I'm just going to kind of fucking ignore it, is the treatment of Superman. Superman seems to be a huge divisive thing in this movie, whether you like him or you hate him. And I kind of want to get you guys' opinions on Superman and BVS.
Well, Superman and BVS is sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's trying to be the Superman we know.
Yeah, he's trying to be a Superman that we know in the world we currently live in, which is
Yeah.
we really like hating people.
Yeah.
Like we really enjoy it.
Particularly
I mean, there's
people
that line that sorry.
I was gonna say people love to hate people that are particularly a symbol of everything they're not.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to try to tear someone down who you're not as powerful or not as educated or not as godly as him, and that is illustrated in this film while he needs to be destroyed by two men who either have power or want power.
Mm-hmm.
And Superman's just trying to be like, but I'm just trying to help people. I'm not even looking for power. This was just given to me. And that is another thing that people resent. Kind of like with rich people. You can be mad at the kid for how much they use their parents' money, but it's not their fault they were raised rich.
Yeah. And they're just like in the actual film itself, like I found it interesting the fan reaction to Superman in this movie kind of mirrors the reaction to Superman in the movie.
Yeah.
Like you take for example the scene where Scoot McNairy dies, his wheelchair explodes and Superman's in the room. And he didn't know obviously he didn't know the bomb was there. It was a lead line wheelchair. A thing they left out of the theatrical cut. Huge fucking plot point to leave out of the theatrical cut there, guys. But so he didn't see it. It blows up, and the world's like, well, Superman was there. Why didn't he save everybody? And then you look at fans, are like, well, Superman was there. Why didn't he save everybody? And it's like, so the movie worked.
Yeah.
You just said the movie worked.
I mean, there's that.
I do wonder if some of this is contextual to the time it was received, because we're coming at this from a Justice League movie that makes all the previous movies in this series make sense, right? But I do remember when first approached with Man of Steel and BVS and a darker DC world, dark Batman has never bothered me, but having a Superman that was darker, a little bit more heavier, a little bit less colorful, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, less bright, rubbed me the wrong way. And I think we were coming off of, the Dark Knight, the Nolan thing where it was like, let's make it darker, more grounded, more realistic, more harder. And there was kind of this, for me, it was an issue when I first watched it of just, okay, yeah, Batman is so dour. He's the darkness, and Superman's also the darkness. Like, there was kind of this vibe going on with it where we weren't quite sure. I wasn't quite sure of a vision for this. Like, where was this going? Because it kind of seemed like with the theatrical cut, with the way the announcements were going and the way with Warner's doing their thing, it was like, well, they're just trying to make a Justice League thing happen, but also not giving Superman his due. And when I saw the theater cut, it was like, okay, Superman's in this movie, but where is he? He just fights at the end, and then you kind of forget about Clark and forget about all this stuff. And so then I got wrapped up in that and the narrative around it. Yeah, and just the complicated history of like going from Man of Steel to having Batman in this, and then it was dealing with heavier issues. And I was like, okay, you're kind of, where are you going with this? And I've kind of also over time fallen out with Frank Miller, who did like 300 and things like that. So there was like this darker edge that was very unpopular for me. And I feel like that's maybe where some people were at with it. And there's lingering elements of that coming into it even now, which I've had to come at it from a different direction watching it this time.
I mean, I can say that I was really pig-headed when I first saw this film. I went into the cinema.
You?
No,
No, that doesn't sound like you.
fuck off.
The zombie dog was pig-headed?
No.
Because
He
I went.
literally walked into the theater with a pig on his head.
I didn't understand. Okay. All right, now it makes sense. Go ahead,
He was
Matt.
oinking the whole movie. How could he enjoy it?
It was very annoying. No, it was because I saw Man of Steel, and I had the same sort of reaction to it that a lot of people had. It was like, they're just destroying all this thing. There's they're killing all these people, and like Superman is basically creating this mass amount of destruction, and it's like it seems to be there's no sort of repercussions of that. And I just think I went into it like, basically, no matter how good the film was going to be, I was going to hate it. Like, and I only saw the theatrical cut for years, up until, like, you know, when the Snyder cut came out and everyone was like raving about it, and I thought, well, I best watch it, and I should probably watch the ultimate cut of Batman v Superman and you know, see what that was about. And the only thing that I can explain is like the reason why I hated it is because just pigheadedness of like, you just absolute stubbornness of like, you know, I don't like Zack Snyder, he's not a very good director. I thought Man of Steel was, you know, it's too dark. You know, Superman's supposed to be this bright, shining beacon of hope, and he's basically like Batman. He's all miserable, and I need to go back and watch Man of Steel again, to be honest, because I think having, you know, all the framing and everything of like what's come afterwards, I think they were setting up this, because like the opening scene, well, not the opening scene, the scene after the opening in Batman vs Superman, we see something we very rarely see in comic book movies, and we see the regular people on the ground whilst these epic battles are going on. You know, you can see Superman flying around, crashing into buildings, but we see it as an observer, as a spectator, and it's a point of view that we never see really. And I think that they intentionally had him create all this carnage and devastation at the end of Man of Steel to address it in Batman vs Superman, you know, but because we didn't realize that it was, and we'd gone off the back of like Avengers had like destroyed half of New York City and with very little repercussions, and then there was just general outcry in these big superhero films, like, you know, there's you could all this collateral damage and no one seems to care, and then like, you know, they started doing really stupid like throwaway lines of like, oh, it's okay, we've evacuated this block of New York or something, and it's fine now. We can destroy the whole city. It's fine.
They do that a few times in this one too.
Yeah, like,
oh, we can go to that harbor. It's abandoned.
Yeah. That
okay.
was the one thing that I found really funny. It's like, oh, it's abandoned. Like, you know, there's like the news report going, luckily it's completely abandoned here. But like, how do you know that people are not working late? and correct me if I'm wrong, aren't docks usually 24 hours operations as well?
Yeah, well, just not in Gotham.
They're all on strike, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it's Gotham docks at night. Seriously, shit's going to go down every night. So why? Why would you even work?
Those are all just criminals, though. Who cares about them?
I mean, all
Right.
of this works into one of my great frustrations when it comes to movies and comic book things in general, where people will always say they want something, but then when you give it to them, they're mad at you. Like, I've had so many discussions with people who say, I'm so tired of remakes, why don't they just make something new? And then I'll list a bunch of new movies, and I'll be like, so did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see that? No, that looks stupid.
No, but I saw Star Wars.
No, I didn't. That looks stupid too, I didn't want to see that. No, it doesn't appeal to me. I'm like, but
It's that sense of
you're not-
entitlement, though, isn't it? It's like, I don't want remakes anymore. Well, we're not.
Yeah,
we're doing new films. I don't like those
That's
films.
what
You
I
weren't
mean.
to do new films like
This
this.
is a new Batman. This was a new Batman for everybody.
For everybody.
But it was an old Batman. It wasn't a origin story, which is what everyone always says they're tired of.
Well, here...
But then you get a new Batman, a grisly, used up Batman,
A-
which is completely new, and they hate it.
Well, because he's grisly, he's used up, and he's fucking done.
Yeah.
Like, he has seen all of his work go essentially nowhere. He is left alone. He has Alfred. His Robin has died. I don't know who the fuck Jack was supposed to be in the building, but that guy died. But like, everything that he has done to try to rage this war on crime hasn't gone that well.
I mean,
He is so
says,
beaten up and defeated.
Yeah, it even says in
But-
the film, like 20 years in Gotham. You know, we've seen. And there's another thing about criminals are like weeds as well. Like, you know, you pull one up and another one comes. So he is just completely disillusioned by the whole thing.
He even refers to himself as a criminal.
And
Yeah.
then with Superman, people so many times these days would say, or, you know, back when this movie came out, would say, well, I don't really get into Superman because how can you relate to Superman?
And
Okay.
here's a relatable Superman.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
hate it.
Well, there's always been an interesting thing about Superman in terms of people's response to him, where you don't want just another Christ figure in the sky, arms outstretched like a cross, but then when you're presented with a contemplative Superman, one that wrestles with humanity,
yeah, he's
suddenly,
not even
it's
trying
like
to be a Christ figure. People are just thrusting that upon him.
yeah. So when a movie addresses that and is actually not that, and like I think there was something I read where they were bitching about that in Justice League, but then I was just like, well, in the full vision of this, the 3 movies, the trilogy,
How dare you,
you've
sir.
got I put on my WB voice, the trilogy, in the trilogy, you've got something that's far from. You've got an imperfect being whose only perfection is just invulnerability. Even that's not perfect. Who has emotional worries and concerns, and like this movie even complicates that even more, especially with adding all the stuff with Clark in, like asking the ghost of his dad, like, how do you do it, or like that kind of that moment of reflection. Like, you don't get that with the Superman. He's always just been good. So to cast any question on that is scary. And it's something that even in the theater version, I wasn't sure I didn't respond very well to, because it was missing some of that context, but also some nuance of what I want out of my comic book characters. And it's taken a lot of time of just formulaic comic book characters and kind of growing out of that in a way that has made me reapproach this with a more like, this is an adult dealing with adult issues who was not raised in the most normal, who wasn't raised normally, doesn't have a guidebook other than just ancient texts and a dead old man, like a dead man, to kind of guide him. And so it's like, of course it's going to be icky and messy and adult.
Well, there's something about Superman in this movie where they never say it because, as you know, I've said it before in other episodes in this month, but Zach really trusts his audience. And what I get from Superman in this movie, and then we'll start talking about other characters here in a minute. But what I get from Superman in this movie is that he is a man who wants to be able to help everyone, but is aware that he can't help everyone. And how can he only help one person if that means 2 other people are dying? And he is constantly trying to juggle that in his head. Like, how am I supposed to help everybody? Like, America wants me to be the American superhero because I'm from America, but that would negate the rest of the world that also needs my help. I can't be everywhere at once. How am I going to do this? You see that in Henry Cavill's face throughout almost the entire film. He is literally carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, as Superman would, but he doesn't know how to do it. He had no one to teach him how to do it. I love the version of Superman that is good through and through, knows what he's doing. That version of Superman is great. It's awesome. That doesn't mean that this version of Superman isn't also great and awesome. It's a totally different thing to sink your teeth into. This is a comic book character. This is a comic book being written by a different writer. Things are going to be a little bit different, but that doesn't mean the characters aren't the same.
Yeah.
You've got that whole montage sequence. I'd say montage. I don't know if it's technically a montage, but it's just after the Day of the Dead thing, and you've got all those talking heads talking about Superman. And,
all those Frank Miller TVs.
Yeah, and it contextualized basically what you're saying there of, like, Superman is an alien, and, like, people's opinions on him as well, like, and our reaction to, what would the world's reaction be if a all-powerful godlike alien came down? People would, religions would sprout up about him, or cults at the very least, and I think it's the Neil deGrasse Tyson thing. What he says really sort of like sums it up really well, I think, where he's basically saying about throughout history, humanity has kept finding ourselves less and less important in the grand scheme of things. We're not the center of the universe. We are not really designed because of Darwin evolution. We are, a happy accident. And now when Superman comes along, we're not even, the most important or the most evolved being on our own planet. Because there's Superman there. And there's the whole conversation with the senator as well, where that the guy saying to her, would you want to say to someone, Superman could have helped you, but we didn't think it was appropriate, or however, whatever he actually says to the center, and then there's the question of, you know, should there be a Superman, and she just says there is, and yeah, it really contextualized that whole thing of, you know, he is just trying to save people and do good, but people are putting, you know, our laws on his actions. So there's that one guy who says that every action's a political action in the world. Not to Superman, it's not.
Yeah, Superman is there to help people.
Yeah.
Full stop. That's it.
I mean, in that philosophy, you get back down to the gritty bare bonesness of man, of humanity.
Yeah.
On our constant desire to assert control over our environment.
Yeah.
And universally, whenever man can't do that, man, woman, whatever, they try to destroy the object.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then it's illustrated here. They're like, we gotta destroy Batman. Or not Batman. Batman needs
Batman's
to destroy Superman.
Oh, yeah. And he does his damnedest.
He tries.
Let's actually talk a little bit of bats. Batman came onto the scene to a gargantuan windfall of no Ben Affleck as Batman, mother of God. And now fast forward to 2021 and people are like, can we please give Ben Affleck his Batman movie? Just give him his Batman movie.
I said this at the time.
Him dating Jennifer Lopez just ruined him for everybody.
It really did.
He made that stupid movie. I never even saw that movie.
Jersey Girl?
No. Get Jiggly?
Call it Jiggly. Just call it Jiggly. So much better.
Getting jiggly with it.
Jilly.
Yeah.
And he never really recovered in a lot of people's eyes.
No.
And Daredevil.
Like winning like... Oh, and Daredevil. Yeah, that's also a rough one.
Was
but
that
like he's an
about the
Academy
same
Award
time,
nominated
I
guy
think?
now. He's an Academy Award winning writer for what was that? Good Will Hunting. Like this guy has chops, but still, him as Batman, people blew the fuck up. I was like, I'll watch it.
Well, this is the thing, right? I remember saying this at the time because I was still feeling a bit positive, even though I was still being Mr. Negative after Man of Steel. Like, oh, DC movies are shit. But if you go back through history, or at least film history anyway, and look at all the actors who were cast as Batman, Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to be the worst
Comedian.
Batman ever. He's going to be shit. Fucking great Batman. You know, Christian Bale. Oh, what's this guy? I comparatively.
The guy from Newsies.
he's not
What the
great,
fuck?
But yeah, but look, do you know one of the Batman who people didn't have an issue with? George Clooney.
That's true. I was like, yeah, this guy will be great. Oops.
Yeah.
It's the hair. I'll fully admit it's the hair. And you're like, George Clooney, that hair carries you everywhere.
Even in ER when he had the Caesar cut.
We all make mistakes in our life. His acting got him through that one.
But Matt, you're spot on. I never even thought about it like that. Like, because it's one of those things where I still know people who hate Ben Affleck's Batman, and I'm like,
did you watch the movie?
Humble opinion, yeah, in my humble opinion, Ben
said-
Affleck is the best Bruce Wayne / Batman we've ever had. I'm
I
not
had a
saying
guy
we'll ever
tell
have,
me-
but so far, yes.
Yeah.
I told you how I had a guy at catering once at work to call me a fucking idiot.
Yeah. Like, oh, I like
'Cause
Ben
I
Affleck's
said-
Batman. You're a fucking idiot. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus.
He ended up getting fired off our show later because he was not agreeable.
No,
That's
really?
what
The guy who
we're-
called you a fucking idiot because you like an actor?
I didn't turn him in, so I just wonder what he said to the person that did.
It's been the response to Batman has always been interesting to me, just because I've generally never subscribed to the like, oh, so and so actor, oh great, what are we in for? And I don't know, just coming off of, I think maybe it's because of the frequency of Batmans. We've been inundated with so many Batmans. I remember back in the day, my thing was like, ugh, more Batman. It was more of like just the character in general. I was fatigued on the character because I had just come off of at least 2 out of the 3 Arkham games, a bunch of cartoons and comics, and just like, okay, I feel like I got Batman. This make like, I'm good. And then there was even more. So coming into it in the beginning, it was all like, oh my goodness. So it was never about the actor so much as just fatigue of Batman in general. So I wonder if I feel like there might be that involved. in some of the response.
That might be
on
the
top-
actual, like,
on top of the other reasons. The
yeah.
same with being a different type of Batman.
Well, that's the other thing is
Yeah.
like this is the most comic book accurate Batman. I will stand by that statement, feet firmly planted in the mud, because like he legitimately feels, moves, acts, talks like a comic book character. Like this guy, like when you see him fighting, like, especially when he's fighting Doomsday at the end of the movie, like it doesn't help that he does freeze frame a few comic book covers every now and then, but like he moves like Batman from the comics.
Yeah.
Like he is there, he is way out of his league, but he's not moving. Like that is Batman. That is Batman looking at a god in the face and going, I can dodge it.
He does.
Yeah, unlike Brock, he actually does.
And then he picks up his little gun and goes, pew, pew, pew.
It's always the way though,
Yeah.
isn't it? With Batman, there's always these things of like, oh, who wins in a fight, Batman versus Thor, and it's like you are literally putting a god up against a guy, you know, a rich kid with a lot of toys.
Exactly, he's rich. That's his super. He even says that in this
In
movie,
Justice
right?
Yeah,
League.
Justice
It's-
League.
He says it's a Flash.
Yeah.
What's your superpower? I'm rich.
Which
Yeah,
has been a
no, so-
joke. Like it's been a joke throughout all time when people talk about superheroes. Like, well, what is Batman's superpower? Like, well, he's rich. He's got all the money to buy these and build these pieces of technology. And I love how they. I know that'll be a discussion for next week, but I do like how they actually point that out in one of the films. Like, you know, yeah, my superpower is that I'm rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what would be really
And-
funny is if Jeff Bezos has a Batman suit that he likes to wear around
Jeff
the
Bezos
house.
is Lex Luthor. We all saw him in his mech suit.
Yeah.
But he
No,
probably
he is.
sees himself as a Batman.
Well, yeah, everyone sees themselves as the hero in their own story, but we know he's Lex Luthor.
Yeah, he
Right,
even looks
right.
like Lex Luthor. I mean,
He kinda does.
Well, and it's interesting coming back to Batman backward in all of this, just because now we're in a post like Arkham Knight game world, and we've had some time to settle on what Ben Affleck was doing with this Batman, and having the, you know, for better or worse, the conclusion to this Batman thing in Justice League, having that context really helped, and I think his journey in this movie with the next movie is very compelling, especially when you have stuff like his introduction to what life is like is his parents died, so you have to force, you use force to make your reality. To where next week we'll be talking about a Batman who says, "You gotta have faith, Alfred."
He also says, "I will fucking kill you." So let's
Yeah.
let's let the haters
Yeah.
get their little spoonful of sugar there.
well, it says
well,
says
but also,
fuck in
I
this
mean-
film. To be honest, you just don't hear him. Like in that
Yeah,
opening,
it's just
in
muted. You clearly see it though.
Yeah, in that opening
Yeah.
scene when he's driving around the thing, you see him mouth fuck, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, there's two aliens raging a war above their city. I would say fuck too. I'd probably say it a few times.
I'd say it way more than a few times. I'd just be running and going fuck, 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 fuck.
By the way, his hair there is amazing.
And I love his pants.
I mean,
That sounds like a weird thing to say, but now when you watch the opening of this movie, you're gonna pay attention to his pants, and you're gonna see what I'm talking about.
I know
They
that
are
I will.
Fashionably business and athletically useful.
Oh yeah, these are some nice pants.
Yeah.
But granted, a billionaire owns them, so I would expect them to be.
I'm sure he's wearing business shoes as well when he's doing, that workout scene. I was watching it
yeah.
the last time. I'm sure he's wearing business shoes when he's doing his pull-ups or something. I'm like, why? What? What are those shoes he's got?
Because he's
on?
Batman.
Because it's harder to stand with no traction.
Because he's Batman. Anyhow, so I have this thing that John was kind of touching on, and I wanna jump on it before we completely lose the thread, but I think it's kind of interesting. So John was talking about like what Batman was doing, or Ben Affleck. Fuck, I'll keep Batman. So what Batman was doing with this character in this movie was, you didn't quite say this, but I think you're kind of nudging at it, was his arc in this movie is not complete. It's completed, or
Right.
at least more so completed, in Justice League. Very much like Superman 2, which is tough to say when you die at the end of the movie that your arc isn't complete yet, but that's where we are. There's something that I think the audience, at least for this movie, specifically for this movie, was trained to not expect. Like, we've gotten so inundated with these Marvel movies and these Marvel comic book movies and how Marvel approaches their movies. And I'm not taking shots at Marvel. I think it's like, everything they do has been good. But the way that they treat their quote unquote connected universe is by having standalone films that by and large button up at the end. Spoilers for WandaVision. I'm sorry, Matt, I know you haven't seen it, but that show ends with a complete button up. Like, we're like, okay, so what happened to Vision? Vision is totally fine. What happened to her children? Her children aren't fine, but they are alive, and she is looking for them. Like, you were finished with a button up that everything that you were worried about is going to be fine in the next thing. These movies do not do that. Your arcs are left wide open. And there could be something in that really kind of bumped people. Like when Zack Snyder said that from Man of Steel to the end of Justice League 3 was a 5-movie arc, I think what people thought would be like a thematic arc or maybe a story that took over those things, but you'd still get standalone movies in there. And although you do get standalone movies, your characters do not here. Like your Batman story is not in this movie entirety. You need Justice League to get that full thread.
And I think it's just, in the grand scheme of thing with comics in general, just we've kind of forgotten how to let threads hang. And I mean, hey, I'm raising my hand here, victim of this, having that same problem the first time I encountered Batman v Superman. I was expecting that this to be a complete movie from beginning to end. It's tidy, and that there's like a comfort blanket that we've been trained in like 20 some movies to expect, like you said, a button up. But like, if you just backtrack, not even very long, you've got the Lord of the Rings movies, which they don't button up. It's just beginning of the first one, the second one with no beginning and end, third one, and it carries across multiple movies and things change. We're not used to like change that can be tracked from movie to movie and have to go back and watch it all as a cohesive unit. I mean, we've done that with TV, and yet somehow we can't do that with movies. It's a very weird adjustment in how we watch things that we've kind of been trained out of the proper way to watch a multiple movie saga.
I kind of feel like Lord of the Rings gets away with doing that more because they're kind of classic books, and like, you know, this is just it's just a comic book movie. It's just dumb summer blockbuster fun. Whereas it's actually taking it like in a much more mature way, you know, like with Marvel, you know, I do enjoy Marvel, but it's so sort of like, you know, everything has a joke, you know, like you can't just let a dramatic beat linger. You've got to have like a joke at the end of it, and that is basically how comic book movies are being seen. And if you've got this film that's trying to do it in a more mature way, it's going to be judged against those other films. So, like, immediately if you're going in saying that we're going to do, like, a Lord of the Rings style thing of, like, you know, we're not going to tie everything up at the end, we're going to, like, continue it on, it's gonna irk people a bit, and they're going to be like, well, you know, I don't have the complete movie, this is rubbish.
And the reason I brought up the Lord of the Rings thing, too, is just because Batman and Superman are classic. And I would consider them classic in the same way that like we treat the older literature, like Lord of the Rings. They're classic stories. Batman and Superman have become classics in just longevity. So like to go back to that and make it something big and something epic, it's like you have to do it a different way.
Yeah.
Well, you have to also think of it in the terms of how you mentioned how we're okay with it with TV. Cinema, again, like nature, you don't really have control over it. You go to a movie theater, sit down, you're at the mercy of the creators and the movie theater to watch that movie. And then you have to wait.
Yeah, you can't just pause it to go to nip to the toilet.
You're not at home watching The Office for an entire week to watch the entirety of the show again and coming and going whenever you feel like. Like, you have to wait. And that makes a lot of people mad.
Well, and especially in a movie like this, because like what you're waiting for, like what you were just given. I mean, to use Chris Terro's terminology here, and I feel like we do need to talk a little bit more Lex Luthor and Wonder Woman before we're done with this thing, because they were both amazing.
Well, there is a point I want to mention about Batman before we move on to those.
Sure.
So this only really came to me the last time I was watching it, and you know, if everyone else has been thinking this throughout the entire thing, I've missed that discussion online. But I genuinely think that like the reason Batman goes after Superman so hard is, you know, he's taken a darker path, and it's very heavily implied he's only just started. Like, you know, the branding is a new thing, and Batman in this movie is suffering from PTSD as a direct result of what happened in Metropolis at the start, and he is looking at Superman and you know, he is the target. He is the reason. Like, you know, there's a lot of sort of stigma around mental health and things like that, and PTSD is a mental health thing, and people who can't deal with the fact that they have a mental health issue focus on something and try to blame that rather than trying to get help. And I feel like that Batman in this is sort of focusing on Superman as the problem, and if he gets rid of that, all his problems will go away. You know, his cure of PTSD is kill Superman.
That's the embodiment of Batman.
Well, yeah.
I have PTSD from when I was 8.
Yeah.
Well, and it's weird to think about it that when you're approached with this movie, that this movie actually decided it was interested in tackling that through 2 movies and tackling Batman and dealing with this. And in a tidy world, you don't get to. You have a few jokes and you head over to the to the bar for a pint. But they focus on it. They spend time on it. And watching it again, I just kind of forgot how much time we spend with Batman. And then his arc dealing with forcing reality to be what he needs it to be and working through that. It's some powerful stuff in the context of what we have now.
And to everyone who's just like, Ben Affleck sucks in this, I'm like, he crushed this role. Like, he did exactly what he did. And that's not even talking about, like, the warehouse fight, which is, we were talking in our chat before we ever recorded, like, that might be the best hand-to-hand fight in any comic book movie. It is easily the best Batman we've ever seen on screen as far as a combat scene goes. It just feels like Batman. But beyond that, like, he does a great job with the
I can't think of a single movie that's come close to that, to be honest. You know, we were talking about like Daredevil with the choreography of the hallway scene, and then there's the Punisher rescuing scene from season 2 as well. But their series,
those are all just harnessing the Raid.
Well, honestly, so was this one a little bit.
Yeah, like, all of this is just going, we all saw the Raid and we liked it.
Did anyone see the Raid? That was fucking cool. Even the CW is doing it with Arrow.
Let's do that.
That's been a thing through cinema for years, hasn't it? You know, like, look at the whole boom of comic book movies. Iron Man came out and everyone's like, oh, that's been really good. Oh, they're actually doing a shared universe. Let's everyone do a shared universe now. I mean, like, to the point where we've got, you know, they tried to do a shared universe with fucking The Mummy and Dr. Jekyll, and we're going to do, Frankenstein as well or something?
Yeah, that was great. We're still waiting on the sequel, aren't we? Was I the only one who liked it?
Don't get me started on how many issues I still have with The Mummy.
That movie sucked so hard. Something I want to mention in this movie, as we kind of move into Wonder Woman and whatnot, and it definitely carries over to the next film, and it's definitely something that I have not seen a lot of other comic book movies, not just Marvel, just any comic book movie in general, really, really sink their teeth into, and they do a great job here, and it continues into Justice League. They really let their superheroes be flawed. It's something that Paramount was hinting at when they still owned Iron Man, but then that got washed away. But there is something, the age-old rule, soft rule doesn't mean shit, is that Marvel is humans trying to be gods, DC is gods trying to be humans. When you have that sort of aspect of things, your gods are going to be very flawed beings because they're trying. Just the aspect of trying means that you're probably not going to be succeeding 100% of the time. Just listen to Yoda. So there is something really kind of interesting that Batman is flawed, Superman is flawed, Wonder Woman is very flawed. And they do this all very well without like just going like, here's Batman, and just having Alfred just like blatantly say, you know, you have PTSD, right? And Superman's like, I just don't know how to be a hero. And Wonder Woman's like, I just don't want to do it anymore. Like, they just show you, they don't tell you. And Wonder Woman leaving the world of man for a century, I'd say is a pretty big fucking flaw.
She didn't leave the world. She just...
Well, those sequels weren't planned yet.
She just did her thing.
Yeah, she just waited around 60 years to bang some stranger she thought was her boyfriend. We're not going to get into 1984 here.
Oh, no. Let's not dig into that. Let's just talk about how awesome her wardrobe was while still being empowering.
And how good all the promo art was. Man, that was all great.
I'm talking about this movie.
Oh, this movie. Okay. This movie, I think she's great.
Yeah.
Just before we move away from that, I just want to say that I'm still mad, very mad about the fact they dropped the Demon in the Bottle storyline from Iron Man 2. Still incredibly mad, because that is set up so much throughout that first film.
Yeah. And then they even start doing it for like a hot minute in the second one, and then it's like, nah, let's just have robots
don't get me
fight.
started on him just pissing in the suit, and that's all you get. It's like, no.
Yep.
Bastards.
Let them fight.
Let them fight. But let's talk a little Wonder Woman and our flawed superheroes. Wonder Woman in this movie. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, or I guess if you disagree would be a better way to say it. If Wonder Woman hadn't been spoiled with Doomsday and everyone well before the movie ever came out, which to me just said like Warner Brothers was terrified no one was going to see this movie. Like, look, Wonder Woman, please come see this. If that hadn't been spoiled, would anyone else been going, so that's Selena Kyle?
Yes, I would definitely have been.
I don't think so.
Because you only see her interact with Batman. If you saw her interact with Superman ever, I'd be like, oh, then it's Wonder Woman. But if you only see her slink around Batman, I'm like, that's Selena Kyle. We're getting Catwoman in this. Cool.
And she's doing very sort of thiefy stuff as well. You know,
yeah.
She does come across very much like a Catwoman character. And even like knowing that she's Wonder Woman, I still feel like they were aiming to make the audience feel like she's Catwoman.
I think it was intentionally. I could be wrong here. I'd be loving to like hit up Zach on Vero. Like, were you trying to make us think this was Catwoman, and then Warner Brothers just spoiled it for everyone?
It could be a mislead, but I like looking at it from the perspective of, okay, so Wonder Woman is not an active participant in the last 100 years, but she's been watching.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about her in this movie. Like, she's a very powerful woman. She knows how powerful she is. She doesn't need anyone to tell her.
No.
So she's just keeping tabs. And then she ends up at this party where you have 3 of the most powerful men in the world. And all 3 of them are plotting in some way. And so she's there keeping tabs.
And given how smart they make Wonder Woman in this movie, I'm guaranteeing she's like, that's Superman, that's Batman, that guy's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's what she's doing right there.
See, now
and
that's
then
kind of interesting.
Waits until she figures out that she actually needs to intervene. She's like, all right, all these guys are in over their heads. I need to go help them.
Yeah.
Well, because I mean, I'm actually kind of interested in you saying that now that I've been. You've made me think back here. How dare you? But just the presentation of her as a character, because if we didn't know anything about Wonder Woman coming in, I don't know if I would have had any inkling that a Wonder Woman character was going to be included. I mean, I guess I've been far enough away from a Batman and a Superman to not necessarily associate that you'd naturally have to bring in Wonder Woman. Like, I've been far enough away, right? Whereas, like, we take for granted a lot of the givens that we get out of a lot of Marvel stuff. It's like, oh, obviously this is going to be obviously, but we've been far enough away from Batman, the superhero trinity here of the DC universe, that maybe I would have been taken for a loop to see Wonder Woman appear if there had been no revelation. Maybe not necessarily think of Selena Kyle, because again, far enough away, but I would have been surprised, and that might have been a very interesting surprise to have for a movie. I mean, granted, we don't live in that world anymore. We can't not be spoiled all the time, but to have it misdirected like that, it just adds a point in the movie's favor, I think.
I honestly think it would have worked. Me being the comic book nerd that I am, and how much I love DC, and how much I want to be the one to figure it out, like I'm that guy. Like, I don't go trailer diving, but when I'm sitting in the movie, the whole time I'm in the movie, I'm like, all right, what's this? I would have been like, that's Selena Kyle. Holy shit, Selena Kyle. When are they going to say Selena Kyle? How? It's definitely Selena Kyle. And then at that moment, when she lands at the fight with Doomsday with the arms, the X, and you get that awesome Junkie XL music that just comes blaring in, I would have been on my feet jumping for joy in the theater. But since I knew it was coming, it's still an awesome moment. Don't get me wrong. Amazingly well done moment. But it didn't get me out of my seat. And thanks a lot, WB, for your marketing.
I mean, so you do have the misdirection with all that. But again, she's very much Wonder Woman in the way she's dressed.
She is. You're right. You're absolutely right. But I think I still would have been caught off guard. Yeah. I think me knowing what I know, I still would have been caught off guard.
I feel like if
Granted, the reveal also happens before she shows up because they have the photo. It's like, it is you. And then you get that little bit of the music.
Yeah.
But
I feel like in that situation, you would have leaned into me and be like, I think that's Selena Kyle. And I'd be like, but she's wearing red and gold.
And I'd be like, that's Selena Kyle. And you're like, that's Wonder Woman. And I'm like, fuck, you're right. God damn it.
Because Zack Snyder tells story with more than just characters, he tells them with atmosphere, and costumes is part of your atmosphere.
I'm so glad it didn't happen like this, because I'd have been sitting in the theater just fuming that I was wrong the whole time. Like, God damn it, it's Wonder Woman. Will you just get to Wonder Woman already?
Kind of like that moment in... I'm going to have to go to Marvel again. Not Marvel. So, well, kind of Marvel. In Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, yeah.
When I leaned in on you and said, on your left.
The only thing I enjoyed in that movie was that moment.
I think the only thing that would have made me question that it's Selena Kyle is the accent. Everything else, she comes across very much like she could be Selena Kyle. You know, like scoping out someone that she's going to rob.
Her with an accent. I mean, they do that to women to make her sensual by
Yeah.
default all the time.
She's an international jewel thief. Maybe she didn't start in America. Like there's things that would have been there. But either way, like Gal Gadot played the role mysterious enough. Like she nailed that whole like, yeah, she's kind of a friend, maybe not, but she's also kind of doing her own thing. Like she played that well enough where it legitimately would have kept the audience guessing. Even if they wouldn't have been spot on like Chewie, they might have been wildly off the mark like me or whoever else.
There would also have been people thinking she's Talia.
Or Talia al Ghul. Like there would have been people speculating. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I think Zach and Gal and everybody involved, they did a great job crafting an actual mysterious character, which I think was really cool. And even though the mystery is ruined for us, she still does a great job with it. I love the way that she interacts with Batman, like the whole, oh, you think you have the upper hand in these situations. Like especially when Batman grabs her like that super masculine, you're a fuckhead if you ever do it to someone, the grabbing the woman right above the elbow. Like he does that to her and she just kind of smiles and moves along with him. She's like, I could rip your arm off and shove it up your ass and have it come popping out your mouth, but I won't.
I do remember that line of dialogue in this cut.
Yeah.
It's a great line, though.
So, I mean,
done that to me. I'm like, you're lucky I'm not punching you in the face right now.
If you do that to a woman and she's holding a knife, it is legal for her to stab you. I'm not a lawyer, but, you know.
Or to touch the center of our back, or to put your hand on the back of our neck. Don't do that.
Yeah, you get stabbed.
If you don't know them, that is.
Well, yeah, you know,
I mean,
there's variations to every rule.
To me, the hand on the back of the neck is always just men trying to possess women, and I never like it.
True.
Granted, Batman doesn't do that to Wonder Woman. He does grab her by the elbow, though, and she just kind of politely
he's
smiles.
trying to assert his dominance, and of course, she's Wonder Woman. She's like, that's cute.
Yeah, that's cute.
Oh, look at you being a cute little man.
I'm a god.
it begins a trend in that moment. It begins a trend of her kind of outsmarting Bruce Wayne from here into Justice League, and it's a fun little moment, especially when she breaks through his entire security in mere moments, and it's just like I like that, and that the next movie calls back to this, like her little cat and mouse little game that she's playing. Like, I'm smarter than you, Bruce. You may be rich and you may be super intelligent and a trained ninja, but I've got years on you. I'm smarter than you, and it's a fun physical and mental banter that they have that the two actors play so charismatically off each other that it's
so
just
well.
entrancing to watch.
And the way she belittles him is so wonderful.
Well, she
just
never belittled
she
him.
totally does that. You boys don't know how to share. Like it's just like
This movie's all about men not knowing how to share.
yeah.
I mean, Lex practically says it several times.
Lex Luthor, I would love to keep talking about him. We need to talk about Lex Luthor. Like, if I'm trying to talk about all the stuff that I thought got a shitty shake in the first run at this movie, Lex Luthor is still getting that now from friends of mine that I have gotten to watch this movie and have then gone, all right, you're right, it is way better than I thought it was, which is quite a lot of my friends after Justice League. It is like, it's been good for me.
Vindication.
Oh, it's the amount of people that have called me or texted me, be like, nope, it's good. It's just been like, it's like an emotional shower every time. It's just so good. Anyhow, most of those people are like, man, that is so much better than you said it was. Jesse Eisenberg still sucks.
Again, it's something new that they didn't, that they wanted something new, but they didn't want it that kind of new.
Yeah, they wanted like the John Cryer from Supergirl version of new. And don't get me wrong.
Or they just wanted
John
Cryer
in
the Gene
Supergirl
Hackman
was
thing.
phenomenal.
Very good.
He was great, but it was a very classical take on Lex. This is not a classical take on Lex Luthor at all.
Well, this is a new Lex Luthor. This is a millennial Lex Luthor. This isn't a baby boomer, I already shaved my head Lex Luthor.
See, I genuinely believe that the classic Lex Luthor is his dad. You know, his dad was called Lex Luthor as well. It's very quick, but there's that conversation where he's talking with the senators about, oh, no, the company's named after Dad, not me. That was just a thing that he told rich old ladies to get money, like write checks for Lex. So they're both called Lex Luthor. He's Lex Luthor Jr. So the people who are complaining about he's not the classic Lex Luthor, your classic Lex Luthor is his dad. He's just, he's born into this, and he's probably still out there somewhere because he's not said to be dead. He just disappeared.
And he has massive daddy issues.
Yeah.
So he goes along with them so well, because his daddy issues, again, like, he has his dad on a pedestal. His dad was his god, essentially. You kind of feel from it. And his dad instilled all this ideas of heaven and hell, power, no power, how to rule the world, essentially, into his son. And he's both of the things that these other two men aren't. Lex Luthor is not the richest man. Bruce Wayne is the richest man, so he hates him. And he doesn't have the physical prowess of Superman, so he hates him. So what does he do? He takes the two effigies, I don't know if effigies are the right term, just the symbols of everything that he's not, even though he should be, because he is white, young, and has lots of money and power, but will never be their equals, and tries to negate them by making them fight.
Not just make them fight, make one of them kill the other one.
Yeah. So then, therefore, pushing himself up the food chain, and he fails. So therefore, he goes to the highest food chain in space.
And there's also something
he fails, but... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's something we touched on the first time we reviewed this that I wanted to circle back. He does show that he is an act.
Yeah.
The Lex Luthor, the millennial, like, jokey guy is an act.
Yeah.
Because he drops it a few times. Every time he drops it, there's Lex Luthor. And that's when it's like, oh, wow, this guy is doing backflips in this role. Like, when you see him, just with the center, like the scene everybody makes fun of, where he shoves the Jolly Rancher in the guy's mouth, that is Intimidation 101. Like, this guy, like, he's jokey, he's playing basketball and people show up. He's like, oh, my dad was Lex. And then when he finally gets this guy cornered, he's like, all right, so what do you want? All the jokes are gone. He is dead-eyed, like, locked into him, like, you are going to listen to me now. Like, the amount of switch is great. When everyone's like, the switch isn't there, I'm like, then you made up your mind before you watched the character.
Yeah. And people had an issue with him having hair. It's like, I'm sorry, Gene Hackman had hair throughout that entire first Superman film. Yes, there were wigs. Yeah. But, he still has a head of hair. Like, it just felt like people were just picking
I saw that complaint too, and it...
I don't know.
They don't, as far as I know, my limited knowledge of prison and jail is they don't shave your head when you go into it.
It's Blackgate. Whatever Blackgate does. Who knows?
Yeah, but I did want to draw out, like, in our whole conversation with Lex, and people seem to dismiss him because either they don't like Jesse Eisenberg or they just don't like what this movie does to subvert their expectations on him. But this struck me while I was watching it this past time. He's good at what he does. He's a good villain. And I say that because he's almost successful. He almost wins. We mentioned that he fails, but he almost doesn't. And it's fascinating watching his moves because he's almost one step ahead of everybody. And it's kind of funny when we're trying to compare this, to the other Batman v Superman movie that Marvel did, where they've got a villain trying to pit heroes against each other and be super smart. That movie tells you that he's smart. This one showed us that Lex was smart. And watching it again, I came to really like him on screen because he was putting the heroes on their toes. He was putting fire to them, and he was outsmarted. He outsmarted them until the very end. Like, had he had his druthers, it would have Superman be dead.
Yeah, and just the sheer joy that you get in a villain pulling off their role. It's something you don't see outside of the Joker in any comic book movie. But when he throws Lois Lane off the building and Superman shows up, he is as happy as a kid at Christmas. All of his plans have been paying off. And just that, whoa, we have problems up here. Like, it's just, he is exploding with joy of how much he was able to pull off.
Because he thinks he has the power now.
Yeah. Well, because he has backups for his backups. he is planning for his own eventual failure with Doomsday. Like, he knows that, like, yeah, I'm putting Batman up against Superman, but let's be honest, it's Batman and Superman. They might still figure a way out of this. I got to have a backup plan. Like,
It's like,
And it's just the type of evil where he schemes. That's what he is. He schemes. He's always scheming.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to stop scheming, because if you stop scheming, if you stop being paranoid, you're going to lose your power.
yeah.
It's hinted throughout that he knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne as well, because he's been manipulating Batman into hating Superman even more. Like, you know, with the choice of his patsy of I forget the character's name, but Scoot McNairy, and the stuff that is written on those checks that are returned. You know, you let your family die. It's all about, you know, pushing him further and further, pushing Bruce Wayne further and further towards the edge, basically, where he's going to go off and try and kill Superman. And, you know, it's all about that manipulation. And you don't, because the audience is not spoon-fed it, they just don't see it. You know, they don't see the fact that actually it's very well planned out. I mean, people say, oh, well, it just happens to be there. No, it was actually planned that would happen. It's not like Civil War, for example, where, you know, the villain's plan working literally hinges on the fact that Iron Man will show up at a certain point.
I mean, that's the big difference with Zack Snyder, is what Brian has said and what we've said for many a year on ATH and Behind the Hype and stuff. He's not a spoon-feed director.
No,
he trusts his audience. He assumes you're smart enough to understand that this really smart villain's been scheming, and he shows you parts of the scheme, but you have to try to put the rest of it together or just accept it. Like, and for some reason, so many people have a hard time with that.
Yeah, like because I've said it many times. Zach trusts his audience almost to a fault. Like, part of the reason why I think a lot of people don't like his movies is because it requires participation. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm not trying to sound like I'm holier than thou. I'm just saying that sometimes his movies take more work than you would expect when you're watching fucking Batman and Superman, just fisticuffs.
Yeah.
He's making a comic book movie, but he's not making a popcorn comic book movie.
No, just like Frank Miller was writing a comic book, and he wasn't just writing a comic book with The Dark Knight Returns, which is, if you didn't know, this is a heavily influenced for this movie, like down to the costumes, the fight, a lot of it is straight out of Dark Knight Returns. He was a huge grand scope story there. That wasn't for kids.
No.
Like that wasn't ever intended.
Absolutely
for kids,
not.
Just like this one is.
And that's something that general audiences always struggle with.
Yeah.
Like, we even have people in our lives that whenever we start talking about comic book stuff, roll their eyes and be like, you guys are still into that kid stuff? And it's like, guys, it's not just for kids. How do you still think that? How do people still think that?
Video games
Well, I think
as well
it's
get
getting
the same treatment. You know, you mentioned to most adults that you play video games, they roll your eyes and go, oh, God, what a child. I've been, like, you know, on dating profiles, there are literally things of, like, you know, people say, nobody into video games, I don't want to be a mum to you or something. It's like, what, because I'm into video games that automatically makes me a child? No.
No, the fact that I'm a child makes me a child, God damn it.
Yeah, but it's interesting that we're kind of in this avenue, because I think it's gotten worse that we've not been able to really separate the medium from its origins in terms of its intended age group. It's kind of why we're seeing Marvel try to put more adult themes into their content, and they're butting up against the problems inherent in how they've done things, is that they're an all ages medium. They're playing in an all ages medium, where Snyder has never been playing in an all ages medium. I mean, all you have to do is look back at Sucker Punch to realize it.
Hey, he tried with
Dawn
Al
of the Dead.
Ghul.
He tried with Al Ghul, but even then you could see the strain there.
Oh yeah,
but
it was
especially
a
with
dark kids movie.
yeah, but especially with like the schism that like Marvel and DC seem to be going in. Like, DC stuff has always been a little bit geared for older, but at the same time, there was a time where his cape was blue, his cowl was blue, and his suit was gray, and everything was super bright colors, right?
Yeah.
So we just, in our movie watching, we kind of have to place the genre on one thing. So like, we think anime is a genre, right? We think comic book movies are one thing, a monolith of it's all going to be childish and goofy. And when we're presented with something that is not goofy, it can have humor in it but still be very adult, and we'll get into a lot of that with Justice League, it's a hard thing to reconcile with, especially with this idea, this popular pop culture idea that the comic book movie has to be bright, sunshiny, tidy, tied up in a nice little bow with a big event, like a theme park versus a deep psychological study of two flawed heroes.
Do we think if this film would have been allowed to be rated R, people would have seen it in a different light? Because if you look at how people reacted to Logan, that's R rated, and you're going to go, oh, it's a very mature take on superheroes.
I know plenty of people that hate that movie.
Yeah, I know so many people that hate Logan, but like I think at this point, I think the tipping point right now with Zack Snyder, I don't think it would have mattered right now, as in 2016. I don't think it mattered what quality, what rating, what anything came out with this thing. People were primed to hate it. They were so ready to hate it because so many people didn't like Man of Steel, which I still don't get. Like, the only problem for me in Man of Steel is the pacing's a little wonky, but otherwise I think the movie's great.
A lot of people like to say too much Lois.
I mean, my problem with this movie is there's not enough Lois. Amy Adams is so good, and fucking hell yeah to Zack Snyder. Name one movie where the romantic lead of a woman is nearly a decade older than the man. Find me one.
I mean, she's probably too old to be a Bond woman at this point.
Yeah, but she's 9 years older than Henry Cavill.
I know.
Like, that's fucking awesome. Like, thank you for not being an ageist, Zack Snyder.
I didn't realize that. You can't tell.
And to move into Lois Lane, the other very important female character in this movie, who has no superpowers other than her gumption.
And her ability to wade around very dangerous areas.
Yes. She's doing her own thing pretty much the entire time. She's not waiting around for Clark/Superman to get over his moroseness. She's like, all right, you're going to deal with your stuff. I'm really sad about it too. We need to figure this out. But also, I need to figure out who made this bullet. So I'm going to go to DC for a while. Like, she's not holding his hand. She's not his mother. He's got his mother in this movie, who's also not holding his hand. No,
like, they're very supportive characters in the way of, like, no, you keep doing your thing, but I'm busy.
Yeah.
Like, and that is perfect Lois Lane. I think Amy Adams really shined as Lois Lane in Man of Steel, and then less so each movie past that, but that's because they started focusing more on the superheroes and less on her. I don't blame Amy Adams for that. I just don't think she had as much to do. But she still does a very good job in this movie. Like, her last moment with Henry Cavill, where Henry Cavill's like, I love you, and she's like, don't say goodbye. No. Like, you feel every line from her in that. Like, she is so good in this.
Just this whole rewatch with the three movies is just really centered Lois Lane in such an important way, especially with the themes that this trilogy is dealing with in terms of grief, loss, PTSD, and coping, and a lot of heavy things. Having that all, there's such a humanity that she gives Lois Lane that it's like, yeah, she humanizes Superman, but he treats her as equal the whole time. Like, there's one scene that I think I love.
As an equal almost.
Oh yeah,
yeah. There's a scene that I love so much in this that actually turned me 100% around on this movie. When Superman appears to her after, I think he says he just sat her down and he's like, I don't know what to do, and she kind of gives him that encouragement, just like he looks to her as a moral help, and it was a very interesting thing. Like, their relationship in this, to me, just is so good, and it's the little things, even though she doesn't get a whole lot to do in BVS.
I do really like the interaction she has in the desert with that warlord. The line that apparently a lot of people jumped on this is like, I don't know why they hated the line, probably misogynistic reasons, but like she has this line, I'm not a lady and I'm a journalist, and it's a direct reference to a journalist called Marie Colvin, and she actually said to a Chechen warlord who questioned her presence in this interview she had with him about her being a woman, and she said, there's no woman in this room, only a journalist. Marie Colvin is she's this sort of female reporter. She died in Syria, I believe it was, whilst reporting. And it's just, taking someone like Lois Lane and being influenced by these real life people who do what she does in these films, and feeding that into the film builds up this much more three-dimensional character, a much more interesting character, and actually someone who has got their own agency. realistic. Like, you know, she's got her own story of, you know, the superheroes are going off and doing their thing. I'm going off and doing my job is to get to the truth. You know, she like a lot of her stuff was cut out as well. Like I'm like when I watched the Ultimate Cut, the fact that the half hour that was cut out was just like, you know, story. All the plot. Yeah. I mean, it's like Jesus Christ. Superman was cut out of his own film.
Figuring everything out on her own.
Yeah. I'm never gonna understand the cuts in this one. Like,
Yeah.
I just never will.
It's almost like they're like, well, we can't have this woman figure these things out as well, because like you know they cut out the fact that it's Lois that figures out that, you know, there's lead lining in the thing. There's the whole thing of her going back to the guy's apartment and realizing that he was set up was cut out as well. You know, it's just I don't know I don't think we'll ever understand the reasoning behind it. I genuinely think it's like, oh, just cut that out. There's no Batman in there. There's no Superman in there. Just cut that out. It's like, but the story doesn't make sense. So we need to get it. We need to get it under 3 hours. We need 2.5 hours. Where?
That was the note. I think
probably was. Yeah,
I think
cut
you
the
just
lady
channeled
out
it
of there.
perfectly. Yeah, get the woman out of there and all that other boring crap, and just
They complained about her in Man of Steel, so let's just get her out of this one.
let them fight.
Let movies be as long
All
as they
right,
need to be.
Yeah, right? How fucking hard is that?
Intermissions are actually quite pleasant in movie theaters.
Oh my god, when we got to see the road show of Hateful Eight and it
Yeah.
had a 15-minute intermission, like, oh my
my
god,
God.
that was so nice.
I can pee and I don't have to run.
Oh yeah, that was great for the Kill Bill experience too.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so we've been talking quite a while about this thing, and I think we got to start wrapping this thing up. I got to be nice to future editor me, because he's already gonna be mad that we're over an hour. So I'm sorry, future me. Give yourself a Coke. Let's move into favorite moments and or quotes. If you have one of each, I'll take one of each. It'd be kind of very easy to do with a movie this long. If you only have one, that's fine too.
Well, one of my favorite quotes from this movie is always Lex Luthor when he's taunting Superman, and Superman's very distraught about his mother, and he wants to know where she is, and then Lex Luthor just says with a giggle, "I wouldn't let them tell me."
I don't know. I wouldn't let them tell me.
He's just so proud of himself right there. Like, it's like how you were talking about with the other line that he says about, oh, we got troubles up here. But
Yeah.
like, there's just the delight. It's a wonderful execution.
Yeah, it's just all my plans worked. Look at this. I'm so smart.
I have Superman on his knees.
So mine, I kind of hinted at earlier, and I'll bring it back up here again. It would have been my stand-up and cheer moment, and it's when Wonder Woman comes crashing into the Doomsday fight. I know a lot of people didn't like the Doomsday fight. He looked a little bit like a cave troll. There's some problems with it. It didn't really feel as earned as I hoped it would have. Even as a diehard fan of this movie, it still feels a little like, and Doomsday's here. But when she shows up for the fight, all of that caring, all of my nonsense about it is just fucking out the window. I'm like, awesome. This is great. Yep, kick his ass. And then she starts fighting. And it's like, oh, that's fucking Wonder Woman. Look at her go, man. Like, that's
She's
fucking cool. And
enjoying
I'm
that
just
as
so
well.
into it.
Like there's just joy in her face when she's fighting.
Oh yeah, and everything about it too, like Batman and Superman just being like, "She with you? I thought she was with you." Like, I love that. It's just so good. Like, oh wow, she is way better than both
And
of
Wonder
us.
Woman's
She
line
has the
before
look on
that.
her face of a seasoned vet who hasn't had a chance to play in a while, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this is where we're gonna go." Woo!
Oh, I can actually hit
And
this
it's
thing.
like she's got that line like, "I've killed things from other worlds before," as she pulls the sword out, and then there's the issue with you thing. That line that she has there, it's just so badass, and like Gal Gadot sells that so much. I mean, again, she was shit on so much before the film came out. Like, oh, that's not Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, she's too skinny. She's not got
She's
big
from
enough
Fast and
boobs.
Furious.
She's too short. Oh, fuck off.
Yeah. Within 2 seconds, like, oh wow, no, she's pretty kick-ass. Like, that was Sarah Connor levels awesome.
Yeah.
Matt, what about you?
I've got I'll give you a favorite moment, and I will try to pick one quote because I've got just a
I know, it's
myriad of quotes here. Most of them Alfred quotes. But my favorite moment.
Oh, we didn't really talk about him all. He's so fucking good in this movie.
It's so good. My favorite moment though has got to be the warehouse scene. Like, I would say Wonder Woman, but that warehouse scene is, like we were saying, it's the best hand-to-hand combat scene in any sort of comic book movie. You know, I would say it's up there in any Hollywood movie as being like a best hand-to-hand combat scene. I love the little references to the moves in the Arkham games. Like, you know, anyone who says that Zack Snyder is not a comic book fan, fuck off. There is so much stuff littered through this film which is clearly just references to comic books. Like that doesn't need to be there. Like, you've got Ace Chemicals in the background in one shot. I
mean, you have Lex Luthor's prisoner number,
yep.
is AC, and then the date the first Action comic came out. Like
20, I think, which is Action Comics 20, and then the year that it came out.
Oh,
it's crazy. But yeah, so that whole warehouse scene, it's just so brutal. It's Batman being very brutal in the fight, but you've got, you know, all of the things like. You've got the bit where the guy like shoots him in the back of the head with the gun, like point blank, and he just gets mad. It's like, you fucking bastard! Oh, gun in! Like, just turns on and like beats the crap out of him.
He gets stabbed, and he gets mad and takes the knife out and stabs the guy with it.
It's like he's so good in that scene. Like, I don't know how much of it was Ben Affleck. I'm guessing that it was like, you know, the close-ups we see of him just like, you know, pulling the knife out and stabbing was Ben Affleck, and the rest of it was like a stuntman. But it's just the whole planning of it as well. You know, the execution, I mean, you know, he starts off on the floor below, blows out the ground, and then goes up before everyone realises, and they're all shooting downwards, and then he's actually above them and, like, you know, throws all those charges on, which disables most of the guns. It's so good. I mean, it's Batman at his peak. He's so brutal.
I wish I were that good in Arkham Knight.
Oh, God, yeah. If you could do, like, in Arkham Knight, being able to do all those in sequence and not fuck up and, like, hit the wrong button, Jesus, that would be impressive. For the favourite quote, it's going to be so difficult because with the Alfred ones as well, you can either go comedic or really serious because he's just so good in it.
Matt's just really jonesing on the British guy in this movie.
I know, the British guy likes the British guy.
I mean, it's Jeremy Irons, though.
Big freaking surprise.
I think Jeremy Irons is the best Alfred we've had as well.
He might be the best British guy.
Do you know who the worst one is? You ready for this? It's Michael Caine.
Yes, it
He's
fucking
a fucking
is.
Shit Alfred.
He really is. He's just playing Michael Caine. Like I was thinking about this the other day. I don't think I ought to be able to go back and watch the Nolan Batman films and enjoy them anywhere near as much anymore, because there's just.
I did recently.
I still
and
they're
still
good. Well,
they're still good. It's just. It's not Alfred.
But there's
really.
a lot of things with it. I just think it just doesn't.
In the Batcave, really doing anything.
No, you know what Alfred doesn't do? I quit.
Yeah,
that's not Alfred. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna go with it's the bit where Doomsday's sort of like out, and Batman says, "What's happening out there, Alfred?" And Alfred just sort of takes a pause and goes, "How best to describe it?" It's such a good moment. It is just so well delivered as well. I love that.
That was awesome. John, what about you?
For the serious moment, I've got a funny quote and a serious moment. And the moment that I really liked was when Clark goes up to the mountain, has a talk with Ghost Jonathan Kent. And just Jonathan Kent gives that story about moving the stream and drowning the other horses while he eats his hero cake. And it was a very good moment for me, having the fullness of this trilogy going. It was just a very good moment and a very kind of emotional one too, that just ends on kind of a "I miss you too, Dad." It was a very heavy and poignant and very emotional moment for me.
It's a good one.
But then on the flip side, yeah, very good. Then the funny one though is an Alfred one, which we need to mention it because ever since the age of 7, you've been into the art of deception, like Mozart to the harpsichord. But you've never been too hot at lying to me. And I'm like, oh, that's a huge characterization right there and a quip. And I really thought that was a very juicy line.
Yeah, like Mozart to the harpsichord. Like, what? Thanks, Alfred. I have no idea what you mean by that. Granted, Bruce Wayne probably would.
Listen to more music.
I can't. I'm too busy being a bat. Like, that's why I'm always going to love Nolan's Batman movies, because he still has the best line ever when Alfred, quote unquote Michael Caine, opens a window and he goes, "Ah, bats are nocturnal." That will
Yeah.
still make all of his Batman movies at least somewhat worthwhile. That movie's so good.
I do love that. I don't deserve you, Alfred. No, sir, you don't. And it's just, he's so good. He's just like, he's an Alfred as well, who's just like, oh, for God's, I gave up on trying to get him to change long ago, so I'm just going to be a bit bitchy and bitter at this point as well.
The one thing that I was looking at while watching this movie, Brian brought up age things, and I was just like, well, how old would he have been? So when Bruce's parents died, Alfred would have been roughly 21, 23, something like that.
He'd be a little young to be taking care of.
Yeah, and I'm like, what did he do to make the Waynes go, you?
Yeah, like, I just got my job here, and now I'm raising a billionaire's child.
For the rest of my life.
This is me now.
Yeah, 'cause it was 1981, wasn't it, when they died? So it's like
Yeah.
35 years to 2016.
Well,
I was
let's
looking
just
at the ages of the actors.
Yeah, we're going off. But okay,
yeah.
it's a little ridiculous. But we got to do double features, and then we got to do plugs, and we got to say goodbye. We're already at like an hour and a half. I'm losing my mind. So double features for BVS. No explanations. Just tell me what you're gonna watch with BVS. Chewy, what you watching? John, what you watching?
I have to watch Justice League after this. I know it's the easy one, but like I can't not. And I had that same problem. I had to sleep after watching this movie. I was like, but I have to watch the next one. Like,
But I
you have
must.
to. But I must. If not for the emotional catharsis. Like, I was like, yeah, you really need to. And I know it's cheap. I know it's cheating, but I can't not watch the two of them together. I can't physically do that as an adult parent, but you get it. I can't not.
I get it. Chewy, what about you?
Mean Girls.
Oh God.
Perfect.
You want to watch a thing about men being super emotional and just going like, oh, we need to fight each other. Mean Girls. They're kind of being emotional, and they're trying to fight each other, but like Mean Girls.
Mine is gonna be. It might seem a little out there, but since I'm not going to describe it, it is what it is. TMNT from 2007.
Okay. All right.
I could explain it. I could make it work, but I told myself I wouldn't. So Matt, what are you doing?
Well, I was going to go with the same as John, but I'll throw some. Yeah, because every time I get
Americans for the win.
get to the end of this, I actually sit through the end credits on this one every time I watch it because I just love the music. That's like the film music itself is brilliant, but I just always like the tracks that they use on the end credits. So I just listen to it, and then at the moment, like the way I've got things set up is it goes straight on to Zack Snyder's Justice League. So then it's like I start watching like the first few minutes. So I've seen that opening of Zack Snyder's Justice League more times than I've seen the actual film because it's then like I don't have 4 hours to watch. It's 10 o'clock at night. I don't have 4 hours to watch this, but I really want to. So at some point I will set aside 7 hours and just watch them both back to back. But to be a little bit different because that's already been chosen, I'll just go with the animated Dark Knight Returns.
Man, I wish I liked that movie as much as you did. I enjoy the animated Dark Knight Returns, but it's just not my favorite. I'm not a huge fan of the
Did
cast.
I see that one?
Yeah, we watched it together. It's good. It's very good. I feel like it should be.
I think it's way better when you watch the deluxe version when when the both parts are just edited into one and you don't have that break in the middle.
I guess I haven't watched it like that, so that you could be onto something there. Because I've read the book more times than I can count. I've read all 3 of them. 2 of them are great. One where Robin becomes the bad guy, and not like any Robin. It's Dick Grayson. He just goes nuts, and it's like, what am I reading? What is
that
happening?
Strikes Again?
This
Because
doesn't
I've
make
heard
any
that's
sense.
pretty bad.
Yeah, that one's not good. The third one, the one that we were talking about beforehand with Superman's daughter, that one's really good. But the second one, skip it.
I just want to leave this saying, if you watch Mean Girls, think about it as a gender bent thing and be like, which Mean Girl gets to be Superman and which Mean Girl gets to be Batman?
Oh, fuck. That's a really good question. I'm not going to answer it here.
I don't think I can.
I think we need to move into plugs. We're we're gonna move to plugs, and then we're gonna say goodbye. Plugs are gonna be very easy for us here. ATHpod.com for this and every other show at the ATH Network, including things like Binge Buddies, which is on a hiatus right now. Matt and I, and hopefully Joel or Graham, but definitely Matt and I will be back with Who, What, When, Where, and Why We Do in the Shadows, unless that title changes. But the show will still be What We Do in the Shadows, and that will be in June. And I know I'm really excited for that. I believe Matt is too. Otherwise, he's just being really nice to me.
No, I'm really excited.
He's actually here, so he can explain if he's... Okay, cool.
I still think we should.
Usually I have to speak
I still
for
think
you.
we should go with mine, which was Who, What, Why, When, Where we podcast in the shadows. But you know,
I mean, it's still good, but who knows? We'll find out. The title could change. And then after that one, who knows what we're going to do at Binge Buddies? I keep getting the feeling that we might do all the DC films, but who knows? We might not.
Harley Quinn.
We really should do Harley Quinn.
We really should.
Good.
I would probably want to join for the Harley Quinn show because I'm rewatching that and just having a hoot.
Is
An absolute hoot.
Oh my god! Would you stop with the owl jokes? The owls who was last week. John, what you plugging?
Oh,
Stop
You
being
know, I got
blinked.
I will blow up the shrimp. Oh, never mind. I'm plugging Demon Days, the actual play podcast that we do every other week. We're still in our bi-weekly schedule, and we recorded recently a couple episodes while we were working around film schedules, and yeah, you'll hear the first one before this airs, hopefully. Well, actually, either way, no matter what. And you'll hear Brian's wonderful voice as the narrator.
Hopefully that bartender can come back at some point. I really like that bartender. Create a whole
Stable of new
backstory
characters
for
I'm
him.
giving you.
He makes his own.
All right,
beer.
Clayface.
I'll tell you
yeah,
his
no,
backstory later. He's a really interesting dude.
Yeah, but yeah, check out the feed for Demon Days. Keep listening, re-listen, go back and listen to old episodes, catch up, re-listen. Love it. Just enjoy.
Any other plugs out there?
I am trying to write an article at the moment. It's not going so well. I've done the research notes.
So no.
Yeah.
Okay.
There may be an article going out sometime in May from me if I can figure out how to just start the damn thing. And once I get it started, I think I'll actually be fine. I think it's just getting my head into that.
So Matt is plugging writer's block.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Matt is plugging.
I've been dealing with that one for like a solid
Matt is
10
plugging
years.
severe stress from overwork, like a massive workload, which is killing all motivation to do anything other than just veg out and watch Bob's Burgers.
And you bought a house. You've
I
been
mean,
rather
the
busy.
house is the the least amount of stress in my life right now, to be honest.
Fuck you, Matt. We're done. We're leaving. We're saying goodbye.
That's weird that you said that. That's so weird, man.
I'm so upset
what?
right
Least
now.
stressful?
Houses are stressful. That's
What?
the way it is.
Yeah, that
When you're fucking 30s.
compared to my job at the moment, the house is a cakewalk.
I mean, we just watched Batman v Superman, right? That's what housing
Now I
is
just
here
wanna
in Los
imagine
Angeles.
that Matt's putting cakes on his floor.
What else do you have on your floor? Do you not have cake?
Oh, we do pies in America.
Ah, pies. Yes.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you later, bozos.